Two sisters take a DNA test for fun, expecting little more than a novelty. But what they discover unearths secrets that have been buried for decades, secrets that will redefine their family forever. It began on a breezy Saturday afternoon. Elena and Sophia stood side by side in the dimly lit storage room of their late grandmother Margaret. The room smelled of old books and lavender, a scent Margaret had loved. The sisters, identical in appearance but contrasting in personality, were tasked with sorting through the remnants of a life well lived. "Another box of recipe cards," Sophia muttered, her hands brushing off the dust as she pulled out the contents. Her meticulous nature made her the natural organizer of the two, carefully cataloging everything they found. Elena, on the other hand, lived for the thrill of the unexpected. "Look at this," she exclaimed, holding up a sole, unopened package labeled Heritage Discovery Kit. Sophia raised a skeptical eyebrow. "A DNA kit? Did Grandma ever mention doing one of these?" Elena shrugged. "Does it matter? Let's see where we come from. Maybe we'll find out we're royalty or something," she teased, grinning. Sophia rolled her eyes, but couldn't hide her intrigue. "Fine, but only if we do it properly. Read the instructions first." Minutes later, the swabs were sealed in their prepaid envelopes, and Elena held them triumphantly. "Who knows? Maybe we're part Viking or something epic." Sophia chuckled. "Or maybe we're just boring old us." The sisters laughed, unaware that their playful curiosity was about to lead them down a path no one could have predicted. 2 weeks later, an email pinged on Elena's phone while she was scrolling through social media. "The results are in," she called out, excitement bubbling in her voice. Sophia leaned over her shoulder as they opened the email together. The first few lines were what they'd expected, a mix of European and African ancestry. But then a flashing red banner caught their eye. "Significant genetic match found. Immediate specialist consultation advised." "What's that supposed to mean?" Sophia asked, her voice edged with worry. "I have no idea," Elena replied, staring at the screen, her excitement replaced with unease. "Maybe Mom knows?" The sisters hurried downstairs where their mother Linda was folding laundry. She took one look at their anxious faces and the email they held up to her and froze. The color drained from her cheeks. "What's wrong, Mom?" Sophia asked, alarmed. Linda shook her head. "Let's not jump to conclusions," she said, her voice strained. "We'll take this to Horizon Medical Center tomorrow and figure it out." Her words were meant to reassure them, but the look in her eyes betrayed something deeper, something she wasn't saying. The next morning, the family sat tensely in the waiting room at Horizon Medical Center. The hum of the air conditioner and the soft sound of a receptionist typing on her keyboard were the only noises breaking the silence. Dr. Carter, a warm and approachable man in his late 40s, greeted them with a kind smile and invited them into his office. But as he reviewed the genetic findings report, his smile faltered. His brows knitted together as he leaned closer to the screen. "Is something wrong?" Linda asked, her voice tight with worry. Dr. Carter hesitated. "I need a moment," he said, leaving the room abruptly. When he returned, his expression had changed completely. He wasn't alone. Two police officers accompanied him. Linda, Elena, Sophia, Dr. Carter began carefully. There's something in these results that requires immediate investigation. It connects to a cold case we've been working on for years. A cold case? Sophia whispered. One of the officers stepped forward. Your DNA matches evidence from an abduction that took place nearly 2 decades ago. Elena's heart pounded. Abduction? That doesn't make any sense. We've never been involved in anything like that. The officer's voice softened. It's not about what you've done. It's about someone in your genetic lineage. The words struck like lightning. Linda's hands shook as she clutched her daughters tightly. No, there must be a mistake. My family has nothing to do with anything like that. Dr. Carter and the officers exchanged glances before one of them replied, We'll need you to come with us. We need to investigate further. The drive to Central City Police Headquarters was a blur. Elena stared out the window, her mind racing. Sophia clutched Linda's hand, her face pale. The weight of what they'd heard left them speechless. At the station, Detective Morgan, a tall man with an air of quiet authority, greeted them. I know this is overwhelming, he said, gesturing for them to sit in the interrogation room, but we're trying to piece together the truth, and your cooperation is crucial. What truth? Linda demanded, her voice trembling. You're throwing around accusations, but you haven't told us what this is really about. Detective Morgan slid a document across the table. It was a detailed report, but the words genetic match to cold case abduction leapt off the page. This case has haunted us for years, Morgan explained. It involved a child trafficking network known as the Shadow Network. The DNA evidence linked someone in your family to the ring. The room spun. Sophia gripped the table to steady herself. Elena's voice cracked as she asked, What are you saying? That someone in our family was part of this network? Morgan nodded gravely. It's possible, but we need to know more about your family history. Is there anyone who might have had a connection to something like this? No one, Linda exclaimed. My family has always been normal. But Sophia's voice broke through the chaos. What about Grandma Margaret? She had secrets, didn't she? Linda froze, her face a mixture of shock and denial. No, Margaret would never. She kept journals, Elena added, her voice steady but intense. We found them in the storage room. She wrote things we didn't understand. Maybe they're connected. Detective Morgan leaned forward. Those journals could be the key to everything. As they left the station, the weight of what they'd learned hung over them like a storm cloud. Margaret's hidden truths were no longer just family secrets. They were the missing pieces of a much darker puzzle. The air in the living room was heavy with tension as the family gathered around the coffee table. The box of Margaret's journals sat unopened in the center, like a Pandora's box of secrets waiting to be unleashed. Elena and Sophia exchanged a nervous glance before pulling the first journal from the pile. Its leather cover was cracked with age, the pages yellowed but meticulously filled with Margaret's precise handwriting. Linda sat with her hands clenched tightly in her lap. She loved you both. Whatever's in there, it was meant to protect you. Elena flipped open the journal and began to read. The first entries were mundane, shopping lists, notes about church events, and recipes. But the tone shifted abruptly halfway through. "I don't know what to do," Elena read aloud, her voice trembling. "They left them here, two tiny babies on my doorstep in the middle of the night. No explanation, no note, just the sound of the car speeding away." Sophia gasped. "Babies? She's talking about us." Linda covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. "No, that can't be right. I would have known if you weren't." Sophia's voice cracked as she interrupted. "Mom, there's more." She took the journal from Elena and read the next entry. "They said it wasn't safe, that they had no choice. They begged me to keep them hidden. I should have turned them away. I should have called the police. But when I looked into their eyes, I knew I couldn't." The room fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of traffic outside. Linda's hands were trembling. "She never told me. She never said a word." Elena reached for another journal, her fingers shaking. "There has to be more. Why would she hide this?" As they flipped through the pages, fragmented details began to emerge. A man Margaret referred to only as H. A midnight visit from a stranger, and a cryptic warning. "If they find out, they'll come for them." "What does that mean?" Sophia asked, her voice rising. "Who's they? And why would anyone be looking for us?" Linda shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know. I thought she was just overprotective. But now—" Elena stopped flipping through the journal and pulled out a folded envelope taped to one of the back pages. "What's this?" she asked, tearing it open carefully. Inside were two documents. She unfolded the first and froze. "It's a birth certificate," she whispered. "Two of them." Sophia snatched the other one and scanned the details. Their names were listed, but the section for the mother's name was blank. The father's name, however, was clear. "Do you recognize this name?" Sophia asked, showing the paper to Linda. Her mother's face went pale. "I've never seen it before," Linda replied shakily, her voice barely audible. "But it has to be your biological father." Elena's heart raced. "We need to tell Detective Morgan." At Central City Police Headquarters, the atmosphere shifted as Detective Morgan scanned the documents and journals they'd brought in. His jaw tightened as his eyes landed on the name listed under father. "This man," Morgan said grimly, "was a person of interest in our investigation years ago. He disappeared without a trace, but we always suspected he was tied to the Shadow Network." Linda's voice was firm. "He's not their father. He can't be." Morgan sighed. "I understand this is hard to hear, but the DNA evidence confirms a biological link, and if these journals are accurate, your mother might have been protecting them from him." Elena's head spun. "So you're saying he left us with her because he was running from something?" Morgan nodded. "It's likely, but the question is, from what? Or from whom?" The days that followed were a blur of investigation and unearthed truths. Detective Morgan's team pieced together a timeline of events surrounding Margaret's life. The evidence painted a chilling picture. The man listed as their father was a known associate of the Shadow Network, a human trafficking ring that operated in the region 2 decades ago. But Margaret's journals hinted at something more. One entry stood out, its words etched deeply into their minds. He said they'd be safe with me. He promised they wouldn't look here, but I see shadows everywhere I go. I can't let my guard down, not even for a second. She must have lived in fear every single day, Linda whispered, clutching a journal to her chest. And she never told me, never asked for help. Sophia stared out the window, her mind racing. What if he's still out there? Morgan didn't sugarcoat his response. It's possible, but if he's alive, he's been in hiding for years. And if he was running from the Shadow Network, he might have had a reason to leave you behind. Late one night, as they sifted through the remaining journals, Sophia stumbled upon a final entry. He came back, she read aloud, her voice shaking. He said they were in danger, begged me to take them again, swore he'd protect them, but I knew better. I lied. I told him I didn't know where they were. He left angry, but I never saw him again. I hope I never do. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She lied to protect us. She risked everything. Linda wrapped her arms around her daughters, her voice breaking as she whispered, "She did it because she loved you, and I'll do the same, no matter what." Despite the fear, despite the questions that still haunted them, one thing became clear. Margaret's choices had saved their lives. As the weeks turned into months, the weight of Margaret's secrets began to settle into something that resembled clarity. Detective Morgan's investigation officially declared the twins' biological father as deceased, his life ending on the run from a world that he had helped create. The Shadow Network was long dismantled, but its echoes still lingered in the lives it had touched. For Elena and Sophia, those echoes became a call to find meaning in the chaos they had uncovered. One crisp morning, Linda gathered the twins in the living room. On the coffee table sat a box containing Margaret's journals, the birth certificates, and the Heritage Discovery Kit that had started it all. "We have a choice," Linda began, her voice steady despite the emotion swirling in her eyes. "We can hold on to the pain of what we've learned, or we can use it to shape who we want to become. Margaret carried these secrets because she believed it was the only way to protect you. Her love was in her silence, but we don't have to follow that path." Elena picked up one of the journals, her fingers tracing the worn edges. "Grandma didn't have all the answers, but she did what she thought was right. I want to honor that." Sophia nodded, her voice softer. "But I also want to make sure we don't bury things like she did. We need to find a way to face the truth without letting it control us." Linda smiled faintly. "That's the strength Margaret gave you. She protected you so you could grow into the women you are now, brave enough to ask questions and strong enough to live with the answers." Months later, the twins returned to Margaret's hometown to visit her grave. They carried a small bouquet of flowers and a single journal, the one where she had written her final entry. As they knelt by the headstone, Elena placed the flowers down, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Thank you, Grandma. Everything. We may not have understood you fully, but we know you gave everything to protect us." Sophia added quietly, "And we promise to carry that love forward, but in our way. We'll build something from all of this." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind carrying the scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers. It felt like closure, not just for Margaret's secrets, but for the lingering questions about their own identity. They didn't have all the answers, but they had each other, and that was enough. Back home, life settled into a new kind of normal. Elena pursued her dream of becoming a social worker, inspired by the resilience she had found in her own story. Sophia, ever the methodical planner, took steps to advocate for families separated by circumstance, using her own experiences to guide her. Linda found solace in her daughter's strength, knowing that her mother's choices had not been in vain. Together, they became a family defined not by bloodlines, but by their commitment to love and support one another through anything. One evening, as the family sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Elena broke the silence. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand why Grandma did what she did?" Linda smiled gently. "I don't think it's about understanding everything. It's about choosing to carry forward the good, even when it's complicated." Sophia leaned back, her gaze fixed on the stars. "We're more than where we came from. We're who we decide to be." Elena nodded, a small smile forming. "And I think we're going to be just fine." Margaret's story is a testament to the lengths we go for love and the courage it takes to confront the truth. Family isn't just about where we come from, but the choices we make to stand by each other. What would you have done in Margaret's place? And how do you define family when the past reveals its secrets? If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever uncovered a family secret that changed your perspective? We'd love to hear your experiences. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire and connect us all.